Do you see, have you ever dealt with clients who come to you and are really struggling to kind of get over that past that they've had, or do they struggle to get through that without, descending into madness?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a number of processes or frameworks you can work through, and everyone's going to be different. But the first one I'll always work on is reframing. Like typically it's the story that people have told themselves about an event, or they simply haven't, had the blessing to go and see psychologists in the past, or have people talk to them about their childhood, because usually that's where it all comes back from. And when you have those conversations with people, you'll find that maybe they were in class one day at the age of 8 and they put up their hand to answer a question, and they gave their answer, and the teacher either said, "Oh, that's wrong," or "You're silly," or something like that, and the rest of the classmates laughed at them. Those people can go through life from that point with a belief system that says, "I'm not going to talk in front of anyone because I'm just going to be shut down." Or it's very powerful stuff. Those people often have challenges with public speaking. The actual, physical behavior of just being a communicator of a message, they can't even get to that point. Their amygdala hijack is just off the charts. As soon as they hear the word, "Oh, you might have to public speak," they're gone straight into fight or flight. And a lot of it is because of that subconscious of what happened as a child at a young age. So you kind of unpack a little bit of that as best as you can without being a trained psychologist, obviously. But you just ask questions like, are you going to let the rest of your potential growth or your ability to become the best version of yourself rest in the hands of one teacher at the age of 8? And you try and get them thinking about things like that. A lot of a reframe, like you'll meet people that say, especially from a professional regard, or "I didn't go to university, therefore I feel, inferior to the rest of my colleagues." I'd very much will work with them around a renegade mentality, which is, what? You're actually bring something different to your colleagues, in a sense that your resilience is phenomenal because you didn't go to university, but you've still made it to the same point as them. Like what you're viewing is your story is a position of weakness. It's actually your strength. So there's a lot of things that you can do in that regard. Simple things like, there's only 3 states you can't be in 3 states at one time in a physical sense. So you can't be, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, and Brisbane at the same time. The same way you can't be in the past, present, and future. So if you're going to choose one state to be in, it's present, right? And if you're going to let yourself go into either of the other two, you're probably more productive to go to the future, but only go there for about 5 seconds and pull yourself straight back again to the present. Things like that. Neutral mindset is something that I'm probably on a little bit of a journey myself at the moment as well. A guy called Trevor Moawad from the States, famous coach with a lot of sports people. Russell Wilson, who plays quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, used to see him every week. He talks about a neutral mindset, and that really struck a chord with me, because I guess I'd grown up for 38 years, being told to be positive all the time. And I get that from a brain perspective, absolutely. Self positive affirmations and those sort of things. But in the concept of high performance, and once again, there's another classic Stoic quote, doesn't come to me at the moment. I think it's Seneca or Epictetus. Once you've prepared or mentally had a look at the battle that might be ahead of you, nothing can shock you with what comes. So that's not negative thinking. It's just being prepared for what might happen, and then just focusing purely on the behavior. So positive mindset can set you up for some pretty significant downfalls. And it's just not a productive mindset. Nothing negative is productive. So I always look at it with clients and say, you just can't be negative. There is no benefit. But a neutral mindset is kind of like saying, I've had 5-second look in the future. So it's not like I've totally disregarded what might happen, so that when that does happen, I just focus purely on the behaviors that I need to do. A classic example from a sporting analogy, I think, was the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks. I think it was the 2007 World Cup. Don't quote me, but they were unbeatable, right? They sort of, their mind space was in such positive territory that they'd already won the William Webb Ellis Cup, and they were turning up to the airport at Dunedin or whatever it was for a ticker tape parade. Now in the quarterfinals, France challenged them in that game to the point where All Blacks just had to kick a field goal, which is a behaviour that they would have practiced X amount of times. They've got the best technical experts in the sporting arena in that team. But what had happened is, because they hadn't prepared mentally for anything but a positive outcome, right? So they weren't prepared that another team could actually challenge them, that when it happened, they all went into the equivalent of an amygdala hijack, right? And they didn't know what to do. You might call it seeing red. There's a good book written about it, actually. And, if you watch them now, some of their, Richard McCaw doesn't play anymore, a guy called Kieran Reid, but they're always got little things that ground them back to reality. So they'll either stamp their feet or look up at the grandstand, and that's just saying, stay in the present moment and just focus on the behaviour. And Russell Wilson, the quarterback, says it well. He says there's sort of, past history, it doesn't always have to be a perfect indicator of what's going to happen in this given moment. Just get back to executing the behaviour like you've done so many times before, and whatever turns up will turn up, and you'll deal with it.
Yeah.
So,
Man,